If you want to find lots of gold, the key to that is moving quantity of pay dirt. Machines like my Keen Highbanker, the Gold Hog sluices, river sluices are all designed to push more soil through so that you can collect the gold that's mixed up in it. It's much faster than panning, but this is only one method of moving quantity of soil. You might get really good gold out of a small crevice, but it'll only give you 1 or 2 pans worth of dirt and then it's all done. By the same token, you might work on a gravel bar that's relatively devoid of gold, so even though you shovel lots of dirt, you still don't get very much gold. Somewhere in between that is the middle ground of what is called pay dirt, where all of the gold is accumulated in a quantity of soil. And when it comes to working one of these deposits to get the most amount of gold, it's all about moving as much of that dirt as you can. And traditionally speaking, we would do that with a Highbanker. A Highbanker is a unit designed as a mini wash plant. It's got a classification system connected to a spray bar, and that spray bar's job is to wash the dirt, mud and rocks through a classification system and down into a sluice box. That sluice box then separates the lightest material from the heaviest material and leaves you with most of the gold in the matting. The problem with all Highbankers is that they are cumbersome. You need to take hoses, pipes, petrol, the Highbanker unit itself, shovels, pans, and a whole heap of other small items along just to make one of these things operate. And as a one-man operation, that can be very difficult. But what if we kind of reverse that process? If you live in an area where most of your gold is very small, like where I live on Reedy Creek, most of the gold is under 3 millimeters. And that means that 95% of all of the rock that goes through my Highbanker is completely devoid of any type of gold. It's simply too large. Therefore, if we use a little bit of logic and get rid of 95% of all the rock that doesn't contain any gold and never has, we are going to be left with a pile of pay dirt that is concentrated of just the dirt that contains our gold. Doing that through a hand sieve like this would take an extraordinarily long amount of time, and therefore you would lose your efficiency that you're gaining from classifying. So instead, I'm going to build a 3.5mm classifier out of some sticks and Gina Reinhardt steel. The idea here is if I spend all of my time classifying on the creek so I get a pile of very fine pay dirt, instead of taking something like this to the creek, I might be able to simply take something as small as that. And don't be like Chris, I found out that these bounce, so don't do slam ball exercises with one of them because it'll break your jaw. That is unfortunately a true story. Theories are great, but the proof is always in the testing. So let's get to the creek and see how we go. Coming up with an idea on how to process more dirt more efficiently and with less weight and transport is one thing, but finding a spot to utilize that gear is an entire other project. To cut out the tedious and repetitious part of prospecting, I've been out all morning looking for a potential deposit to use my classifier, and I found a spot that I think will work really well. This is a really wide, long stretch of Reedy Creek, and it comes up in a nice mound here and turns into a gravel bar. And this only ever happens if there's something to cause a blockage. In this case, it's highly likely that there's going to be a bedrock incursion underneath those trees. Whether or not I can reach that incursion doesn't really matter because there's clay in this area. And the gold is just sitting on the ground here, ready for me to pick up and run through my classifier. But that's what I'll be doing tomorrow. The most important thing you need to take note about this gold is not the quantity, but the size. All of this gold is well under 1 millimeter, and that is what we're relying on to get all our gold through our classification system. Between the time that I made the classifier and got it out to the creek 2 days later, I was bitten by a redback spider, so I am feeling a little bit under the weather. It's just starting to go all kind of disgusting coloured. It doesn't seem to be showing up on camera very well, but nonetheless, there it is. Redback spiders tend to live under things like tables, chairs, places like that. I actually got bit in this park sitting on a bench, not doing anything prospecting related at all. And I say that because I might be a bit slow today. Nothing a little bit of grounding won't fix. Oh, why does my pay dirt have to be out there in the hot lands? This classifier and the one that I made have a similar mesh pattern. Therefore, we're going to do a little bit of science. I'm going to take a raw pan of dirt, process it, and see how many specks I get. Now I can count 7 little pieces of gold there. I'm then going to take the same amount of dirt from the same spot and run it through my very small mesh classifier and see how many specks I get. Because I'm not running water over the top of my screen, I classified this without sinking it under the water. That means that the losses we're going to incur are going to be from the dirt stuck to the rocks like this. So we're going to lose a little bit of gold out of that. The question is, how much? If the spec count is similar, it means that the theory holds true. No, we still got our gold. There are 6 small flakes just there. A couple of things, I've moved into the shade and off that gravel bar because of how I'm feeling. So I changed my spot. The first pan you saw I took from over there, but the results were from this spot here. So I'm now going to be classifying dirt out of the water, therefore it's going to be wet when I push it through the screen. Same exact spot, same amount of dirt, same panner, the only difference is classification, and we got the same amount of gold. You can never be 100%, right? Like, we're dealing with nature here. Give these flakes back to the gold gods, and we're going to start our classifier. I had a really large gauge mesh on the front originally because on my 1/4 inch classifier it tends to catch the larger rocks and just slow the dirt as it comes down and allows more through. But in this case it's actually gumming it up, so I've flipped it over so that it's going to act as a support mesh and the fine mesh is going to be on the front. Have you got any energy?
Yeah, I got plenty.
Oh, here you go.
What? You're making me do the digging?
Yep.
Both shovels?
Shovel man. That's some fine shoveling there, boy. Oh, come on, spider boy. Let's see how long it takes me to do 100 shovels. I'm actually super impressed with how clean that is. One tiny little flake. So what's coming off the front, we're losing approximately, if we had 7, we're losing 1, we're losing somewhere around 15% or so of our gold. That is not too bad considering the method that we're using right now. This definitely could be improved, like some washing facilities or whatever, to get that smaller dirt through that classifier. If we're getting 7 specks per pan and we're losing 1, that's still not too shabby considering we're not even classifying with water. Everything is sweaty. Why?
Tango with a spider.
The test head of the tailings had 1 speck in it, but the soil changed. It went grey. And I was like, well, I should probably check that, and I'm glad I did, because if we're only losing 1 speck out of that, we're still going to be in for an okay day. I've got sudden sweaty motivation.
Sweaty motivation.
Sweativation. So the gold got better. The gold got considerably better. And that is fantastic news for me because I'm up to 40 shovels. Need my shovel. Oh! Make that 31. I'm just standing here, classifying away and Senior Sweatpants is over here putting on his sweatpants, and he's been making all kinds of jokes about how he's mad because he's got sweatpants on, but that's not what I want to talk to you about. Gadsy, I just heard you make seal noises while you're putting your sweatpants on.
Huh?
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh no, he's coming out. I don't know what that is about.
That is 45 shovels, and I've run into a problem. My spider engineering has failed me. It would appear that I did not use enough cable ties nor duct tape. However, 45 shovels took me all of 30 minutes to do. That would be the equivalent of about 22 pans. I don't think anyone's panning 22 pans in 45 minutes. No, in 35 minutes. In 35 minutes? 30 minutes. I have spider brain. It's been half an hour. 22 pans in half an hour. The equivalent of that classified. Anyway. Yeah. So whilst my mesh needs to be reformed and changed around a little bit, we did still get 22 pans worth of dirt classified. And I need to gingerly put all this precious, precious gooey pea dirt into a bucket. There's still a little bit left on the gravel itself, but for the most part, I think I collected the majority of what I classified. The tarp would have really helped. My first pan seems to be holding true to that idea. There is significantly more black sand in this, and I've already seen gold at the back. I have no idea how this is actually going to go. I would expect there to be, well, there is a lot more black sand in here, and I would expect to see more gold than the test pan, which at the start was 6, but at the end was like 30, so it's going to be a mixture of that. So I would expect to see sort of 30 to 100 pieces every single pan, and that's what we've got. That is a 3/4 full pan of our classified material. Remember, we started with 6 specks a pan, meaning that we have hyper concentrated our dirt so that we're way more efficient. Now every single pan that we're doing is the equivalent of doing like 5 or 6 pans. Obviously I need to find better ground and make some further structural improvements to my classifier, but the principle works. It took me less than 30 minutes to classify 22 pans worth of dirt, and now every pan that I'm doing is like 5. This could actually be a game changer in certain spots. Praise the Lord Jesus. That bucket is empty. I am currently running at less than 50%, I would suggest, in terms of energy, so I think I'm doing pretty good. Heaps of black sand in these pans now. It does look like I've done a small sluice clean out, like a river sluice clean out every single pan. And yeah, about the same amount of gold. So obviously we're getting an average between the top layer and the good layer that I only did a few shovels of down the bottom, but it's working out because in 3 pans I've got a significant take of gold compared to what was in the test pans. I'm filming this video and I'm just thinking to myself, I hope I'm explaining this really clearly. I think I am. If I'm not, go easy on me in the comments. It's taken me an hour to get to this point, and I know that if I was running at full capacity, this wouldn't have taken me half that time. Probably 20, I reckon 20 minutes I could have had this all done. Anyway. I'm not, like, it's something about feeling terrible that makes me want, it's like the only time I want McDonald's, like I want a quarter pounder. And I feel terrible.
What, McDonald's? Or?
No, like I feel shit, so I should probably eat some steak and veggies, right?
Yeah.
Like I do every other night, but it's the only time I get a craving for Macca's is when I feel like this. There's actually alright flakes here. If I had the energy, I would be smashing this spot because it's actually got okay gold just there. It's been a while since I've seen garnets looking like that come out of my concentrates. Like, they have to be big for me to see them because of the color blindness and all. I'ma keep them. Almost got this last pan done. But before we reveal the gold in that, there's only one important thing you have to do. And that is consider the possibility of hitting the subscribe button and most importantly, leaving a comment. Comments are what ultimately drive my videos and every other creator's videos into new people's news feeds. It shows the YouTube algorithm that people are finding your video interesting, and it's a free, easy, fast way of supporting the creators that you enjoy watching. And so if you need help trying to figure out what you're going to leave your comment about, I would suggest one of two things. Leave the spider that you were bitten by below, or have a guess how many specks are going to be in this pan. And about the same, about 30. After it's all said and done, I think I managed to move a fair amount of dirt considering my current situation, and it looks like we actually managed to recover a decent amount of gold out of that dirt. I'm gonna have to take this home and clean it up because that is actually a really decent amount of gold for the amount of effort that I put in today. I'm going to go out on one spider-bitten limb and suggest that the methodology here works. You just got to be not full of venom. So there you have it, processing 22 pans worth of dirt in a little over an hour, even full of venom. That means you can literally forego the need to bring out a big Highbanker if you classify tight enough, but that's only applicable to places where the gold remains consistently small, like in my area.